Hello, friends. I am Chevee. Welcome to my shed. How are you? How are you today? How's life in your world? How's things where you are? I'm doing good, and man, I've been beating myself up lately over things that I said I was going to do and I haven't done, and it's really causing me a lot of problems. And I've been working my mental way through a whole bunch of processes, thinking about the way that I see the world. And one of the things that I've realized is I've created a lot. Besides the 900 and some episodes of this thing I've created lots of videos, tutorials, gameplay videos, woodworking videos. I've created thousands of words on various blogs over the years. I've created websites. I've created apps that have, I think very useful use cases. I've created board games that I've given away for free or that I've put up for sale. And none of it has ever, I don't want to say it's never amounted to anything, but it's never been successful in the traditional view of what is successful. And I think what I've come to accept is the fact that I'm not narcissistic enough. And that's probably a really harsh way of putting it, because that means that people who are successful are narcissistic, and I don't necessarily truthfully believe that. So I've been kind of doing this circle in my head. And why I bring this up is I listen to a lot of podcasts and I watch a lot of YouTube. I don't really watch TV that's not true. I don't watch a lot of scripted content. I watch real people being real with, creative? Why did I say it that way? With creative outlets. I enjoy seeing the creative process of all sorts, whether it's writing or making or talking or, storytelling, whatever. And the people that I watch and listen to are essentially regular everyday people who had a passion for something and found a way to turn that into their primary source of income. So for an example, one of my absolute favorite podcast personalities is a man by the name of Aaron Mahnke. And Aaron Mahnke, if you've never heard of him, created a podcast years ago called Lore, and it's a podcast that tells American lore story. Well, not American. It's just stories about lore, like folklore. And that podcast has turned into books. It's turned into seasons on Amazon Prime. It's turned into like 3 or 4 other spin-off podcasts, a live tour, all sorts of stuff. And it all came from this one guy who had a passion for lore and decided to do it. And it became successful. Now, the thing is, it became successful because he's willing to promote it. He's willing to go say, hey, I'm Aaron Mahnke. I've got this thing. You should listen to it. It's awesome. If you like that, I've got these 5 other things. And if you like that, I have these books. And if you like that, I'm going on tour. Buy my tickets. Buy my books. Buy my things. Watch the TV show. Do all this stuff. And because of that, it's been successful. And me, I'm not willing to do any of that. And it's not that I'm not willing. It makes me feel icky to ask, I used to ask for people to support me on Patreon. When I started this whole thing, I thought Patreon would be a really good way for me to get shop supplies because I couldn't afford them. I was that poor. I was in a very bad situation when I first started this show. So even $50 a month from Patreon would have been astronomical. It would have bought wood and nails and screws and things that I could make. And that's what I thought I was going to do. As it turns out, nobody really watched the videos that I created, making doggy gates, making overhead cameras, making stuff like that. So I never really got that. And then I used to ask for money for this show because I wanted to buy a new camera. I wanted to buy a new table saw, and people paid. And I felt bad about it every single time. I felt horrible every time I would get that $30 or whatever it was, because I felt like I was not providing value for that money. And that's where my internal dialogue says, I'm not narcissistic enough to promote myself because I feel bad about it. But I think what's really happening is it's not narcissism, it's my lack of faith in myself, my lack of commitment to whatever it is I'm doing. I don't believe in anything that I'm doing fully enough to say, please pay me for this, or please support me by doing this. Go to my Amazon, buy me something, go support me on Patreon, become a YouTube member, follower, whatever. I don't have that. It makes me feel a little bit weird because, I guess it's not narcissism. Now that I've talked my way around this circle, I think maybe it's just a lack of commitment or a lack of conviction is, I think, the word I'm looking for in what I'm doing. I'm not passionate enough to say this is good, and I have no problem promoting it. Maybe that's the problem. Obviously, this all kind of circles back around to the review channel. I really want to do this review channel, but I also have a little bit of an imposter syndrome. Like, who gives a damn what I think about games? But I've spent a lot of energy on the studio. I've spent a lot of energy on the lighting and the sound and getting everything cleaned up and ready, and I'm ready. I just have a really hard time saying I'm good enough for this. And I think that's where a lot of this comes from. So as I've been listening to podcasts, like all of Aaron Mahnke's stuff, like another favorite is The Way I Heard It. Mike Rowe from Dirty Jobs does an amazing little 10-minute podcast. And he has no problem saying, hey, my book just came out, go buy it. And he's like, I know this is self-promotion, but it's what we have to do to make a living. And that makes a lot of sense to me. Why am I incapable of doing that? Why am I incapable of saying, I need money to do this, please support me? I don't know. Something inside of me says that's wrong, and it makes me feel weird when I say things like that. So I need to get over myself, I think, is what it all comes down to. You let me know, because I'm sure that you have a pretty good idea of what's wrong with me. Tell me in the comments. I appreciate hearing from you every single day. I really, really mean that. So please, leave me a comment. Subscribe to my channel. Share my channel with people. Maybe somebody else out there will get something out of this. And maybe someday it will become something, because I'll have a voice that means something to somebody enough that people will tag along to see what comes up in Chevee's world next. I don't know. Maybe I just need to start promoting myself. I need to start saying, hey, support me on Patreon. Or, support me with my Amazon wish list or whatever. I got nothing. Thank you for being here, as always. Thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing, being amazing friends, being wonderful people. I appreciate you very, very much, and I'll see you tomorrow. Alexa, tell me a random fact.
Camels were imported to Australia starting in 1860. By the 2000s, so many had been born wild that it threatened native species.